What would happen if you found out that the only real fight you have in this lifetime is with yourself? Let's talk about that.
Welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today's special guest, Pauline Victoria, is an inspirational thought leader and founder of One Leg Up Productions. Born without arms and legs, Pauline uses her life experiences to offer transformational perspectives that inspire others to rise above limitations and create from possibility. Through coaching, masterminds, and retreats, she equips thought leaders, speakers, authors, and coaches to step into their full potential and amplify their visibility. Pauline also hosts the Small Victories podcast and shares mindset and business strategies in her Made for More community, empowering others to build a successful and fulfilling life with a can-do, no excuses approach. Welcome, Pauline. So great to have you on.
Thanks, Daryl. So happy to be here.
You know, we were on your podcast not too long ago, and I loved our discussion, and it was really, really cool, and I have so much just profound sense of how powerful you are as a person, and that was a really beautiful thing, because you know, we go through this life, we meet a ton of people, and then there are a few people that hit us along the way, and that's been my experience, and you're one of those people for me. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm blushing. I'm totally.
Well, you know, and I'd love it if you wouldn't mind getting into your story of, you know, that personal power that sort of emanates, and we all, I believe we have to find it within ourselves, you know, in terms of, I don't know if anybody shows up with it. You know, I know there are some people that sort of, you know, amplify whatever message, you know, they're promoting and that sort of thing, but there's something different about someone with that power that's coming from within, and like I said, you're one of those people. So I'd love to, you know, and I know my audience would love to hear your story of how you got to that place, and you know, maybe some of the obstacles and things that were difficult.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and to the people who are watching or listening to this. You know, I think at the heart of everything that you, Daryl, and I do is to make an impact with people. And so I will speak in that context of telling my story. Telling my story for the sake of telling my story really doesn't do anything, but it really is coming from the intention of wanting to support and help others live out their fullest potential, and like you perfectly said in my bio, create from possibility. So yeah, and you know, it's interesting, you're the second person I've met recently that said you just come in and you like own the room. And you know, it's nothing I do on purpose or consciously. And before this, we talked about, oh, you got to fake it till you make it, and I just don't do well with the faking it. So this really is me. Who you see is, and who you hear is what you get. And so my story, I know when people hear like, oh, no arms and legs, like how, like, why did that happen? And you did mention it, that I was born this way. I was born to a 6'6" Minnesota bred farm boy and a 4'11" Filipino immigrant who met in the Air Force. My mom came from the Philippines and joined the Air Force as a naturalized citizen because my grandfather also fought in World War II on behalf of the U.S. in the Philippines. So they met in the Air Force, dated for 6 months, and found themselves pregnant with their first baby. And we know that with babies, it's not just a human life that's born. It is potential, it is dreams, it's hopes. There's so much wrapped up in preparing to receive a new life. And my parents weren't any different. They had all the excitement and preparation and all the tests done and everything on the medical side of my mom's pregnancy showed that I was perfectly normal. And they did see in the ultrasound that I was breech and that I would probably come from a cesarean, because back in the 70s, yes, I'm aging myself, that's what they did. And so my mom went into labor about a month before I was supposed to come out. They rushed her to cesarean. They put her under anesthesia and proceeded to get me out of my mom's womb. And when they pulled me out, the doctors were just as surprised. But because my mom was unconscious at the time, they went and told my father, who wanted to tell my mom. He wanted to be the messenger. And I know as messengers, sometimes it's like, don't shoot the messenger, but it is what it is. But so I feel like he was brave
Mm.
in volunteering to be the one to tell my mom that their first baby didn't have 10 fingers and 10 toes. And so when he told her finally, when she came to, she answered with 4 words. And those words were, "Thy will be done."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's powerful. And every time I tell the story, this part of my story isn't really my story. All I did was be born. It really
Mm.
is my parents' story, but it sets the tone for what was to come and how they did raise me and how did I get to this point of that, having that personal power and believing in myself. And my parents, even though the doctors were really trying to encourage them to give me up into an institution because they didn't have the resources, the knowledge, the skills, they had no idea what they were getting into if they took me home. They didn't even know the capacity of my brain at that point. But my parents did choose to defy logic and rationale. And oftentimes it's when we choose to ignore logic that the greatest things unfold. And so my parents took me home with just that hope and that faith and love for me, and did their best to raise me. And one of the best things that they did for me was, I'll share the story to illustrate the point. I was about 1 year old, and by this time, my parents knew my cries and my fusses and what I wanted. And I was laying on the floor and I was fussing, and my mom knew I wanted to sit up. And she went over to go sit me up, and my father grabbed her arm and said, "Hold on, let's just see what she'll do if we don't help her." And they proceeded to watch what I would do. And what I did as a toddler was throw the biggest tantrum I could without arms and legs. I do have a little leg, so they said I was just kicking and I was angry and I was frustrated. And eventually, after all that came out of me, I rolled over to the wall and I used the wall and my head and my neck to inch my way up to sit myself up. And that was the best gift that my parents could give me. I call it tough love, because they gave me the space to be comfortable in the frustration, in the uncertainty, in the anger, so that I could see what I was made of, so I could see what I could do. And I think, it didn't just go for me as a parent myself. Like, it's so hard to sit back and watch your child suffer. You just want to pick up the pieces and help them. But there's something that happens when you give them that safe space. I mean, I knew they didn't love me. It's not like, oh, you don't love me. I knew they loved me. They built up that bank account already, invested and poured love into me, that nurturing love. But it did give me the space to step into my greatness, even as a 1-year-old. And I kind of took that mindset and I started applying it to myself, right? So maybe my parents did it the first few times when I was a kid, like, oh, she's hungry. Let's see if she can feed herself. Oh, she wants to color. Let's see if she can color herself, like all those things. But then as I grew up, I started applying that same approach. Like, I wasn't scared to try things and fail. I wasn't, like, I remember at 12 years old, at 12 years old, I grew up in a neighborhood that had a cabana club, like a neighborhood pool. And every summer, all the kids would hang out there. And when we were kids, it was great. We were all started in the baby pool that's 1 foot deep. Then we moved to the big pool at where the 3 foot area is. But then by 12, everyone started wanting to go in the deep end, and I couldn't get to the deep end.
Mhm.
And I really, really wanted to belong. And I really wanted to be involved and participate fully in life. And I just had to, I was like, okay, well, then I need to learn to swim. And it's not like there's step one, if you have no arms and legs, this is how you swim. Step two, there's none of that. There was no example. As far as I was concerned, I was the only one in the world who had my condition. That's not true. But, your world is small when you're young. And, I just pushed myself, and eventually I figured it out after swallowing gallons of chlorinated water and almost dying. But even that, when you're not going to die, but it feels like you're going to die, like when you're drowning, like there's lifeguards. But in the moment, even that fear wasn't big enough for me to be able to stop because I wanted to belong so much. So in that story, my fear of not belonging was bigger than my fear of even drowning. And so we're all going to have fear in our lives. And the reality of it is we get to choose which fear wins out.
So true. That is
Yeah.
so true. There's one thing I want to say real quick, if I may, and thank you for what you've said so far. It's just it gives me chills down my spine in a very good way. The courage that you have, but somebody put on your website in one of the reviews, they said that you're a very courageous person, and basically, thank you for showing the world that courage is free. And I thought that was
Mm.
just beautiful that was said to you and about you.
Thank you. Man, I don't even remember that. I got to go
Mm.
back and read my reviews. Thank you. Yes, it is free, and it is probably the hardest thing anyone will do, right? If you have that, courage is not there's a quote, right? Courage is not the absence of fear. It is being able to stand in the fear or confront the fear and be able to move anyway. And it's been my whole life. And so I realized I didn't answer your question. How did I tap into this personal power, or that because personal power is really made up of belief and worth, your self-belief and your self-worth. And for me, it was just being able to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and believing that I could. And like I said, it's creating from that possibility. I had no evidence for swimming. I had no evidence for living on my own and going to college. I had no evidence for driving. I had no evidence for getting married or having a baby. Like there's no evidence. So how do you create something from nothing? But you create from the vision, and from there, with every step, even the small, like I love my podcast, The Small Victories, even the smallest wins. Like yesterday, I was home by myself, and I really wanted some of that popcorn that was in my pantry that I can't get into. And I used like a broom and one of those stand-up dustpans to get to it and like drop it on the floor, then scoop it up with but it was a little thing that I know is not worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize or accolades, but those little things, you just keep, like, you want it, go get it. And you achieve it. And then slowly that self-belief and that self-worth starts to bubble up, and it becomes your very essence of who you are.
That's beautiful. Excuse me. That's really beautiful. I was reminded, and I don't know how long ago I heard this, but it was a long time ago. I think it was I'm a sober guy, so I've been sober for a long time. I believe he was the sober minister. His name was Jack Boland out of Warren, Michigan. And he used to say, he said, when I ask God for strength, I believe, and I've adopted this in my own life, that I don't have to wait for God to give me strength. I have to go do the thing, and then the strength comes. And I believe that's exactly what you're describing, Pauline, is you already have the strength. It's just a matter of exercising that strength and that gift that we've already been given. And because I think we spend a lot of our time, a lot of our lives, we can spend a lot of our lives waiting. You could have waited for somebody to come home and grab the popcorn. But you're like, nope, I'm getting the popcorn. And that's just a cool example of, like you said, the small victories.
Absolutely. And so, I work with people to help them identify what's really stopping them. And at the end of the day, it's always ourselves. There's no bear or lion that's out to get you that is stopping you from achieving anything you want. And hopefully my life is a testament to that.
It absolutely is. There's no doubt. I mentioned before we started talking or before we started recording that, I went through your website and saw a whole bunch of cool stuff. And one of the things that you mentioned in there is that we're not at the mercy of the deck that life has handed us, or that of the government or of other people's thoughts or conceptions of us, that sort of thing. It all comes from us. And that is probably it's an easy message to impart. Sometimes the difficulty is either in, living that because we're so bombarded by everything, right? Outside of us, that, what are they saying? What's the government doing? Oh, I can't do this because they're doing that. And, my life is stifled because of them, right? Outside of us. And that's just not the case. And I think the difficulty is in, I'm pretty clear on that in my life these days. It's not going to happen unless I get after it. But how do we impart that message to others? How do we get other people to develop that belief and that faith to take those leaps? I feel like that's the puzzle.
Yeah. And there's no easy formula, right? Like we always want things in a nice, beautiful package with a bow on top. And there is none. A lot of it does come from experience. But the reality of it is, and this kind of comes back to the idea of personal power. When we allow our circumstances to dictate to us what choices we make, what we think is possible, whether we stay or we go or move toward our dreams or not, that's us giving away that personal power. I had a gentleman ask me on a podcast one time, like, doesn't it, like, how do you deal with people staring at you or saying things to you that are rude? Or I've had all sorts of experiences with interactions with people and what I bring out in them. And I said, well, it doesn't bother me, because if it bothered me, I would be giving up that. I would have to lend my power to them in order for it to bother me. And I learned that early on, probably because I couldn't control what people, how they would react to me. I've had grown men. I was 6 years old in a grocery store and had grown men cry over me. People had thrown me money. I won't reject that if you want to do that, but but they've thrown me money. They have cried over me. They have prayed over me. They have admired me. Oh, I'll tell you a story. I was with a friend and we went and got some dessert, like at a natural food store. And then we were eating at one of the tables in front, and we were eating, and someone comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, that's how you eat?" And I'm like, yeah. She's like, "Oh, And I just kind of sit and stared at her, and she's staring at me, and she's like, "Oh, don't let me stop you. Go ahead, eat. I'm just going to sit here and watch." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Oh, okay." So like I still get surprised by people's reactions, but the reality of it is I cannot control their actions, and their reactions are not a reflection of who I am. It's a how they react, what their reactions are is a reflection of who they are and where they are in their life. And so um, I just have learned early on not to own it, because if I did, oh, life would be so heavy. I would be like a boulder, like it would be a boulder on me, and I would not be able to move if I allowed my power to be given to those people.
Heavy, I think, is a phenomenal word for it, because you can feel that weight of other people, right? In terms of, if we allow that to enter us, or to thwart us, or to stop us, whatever that is. And we talked about this a little earlier, but, and I'd love your opinion on it, Pauline. I don't know many people. I feel like there's got to be, and Joseph Campbell talks about it in terms of, the descent, the ordeal, and then the return. And I feel like that's our lives in a nutshell. Because I don't think anybody comes out with confidence, and the world doesn't teach us confidence. The world teaches us, if you do this right, or you do that correctly, or you get good grades, or you're good at sports, or whatever it is, then you'll be loved and accepted, and everything will be cool, which is all outside influences. So that I don't think anybody's born with confidence, right? And it's something we need to develop.
Absolutely. And confidence comes from action, and action comes from courage.
Hmm.
And courage comes from the possibility, like the vision of like, well, what could be? And is that vision so big and aligned with such a strong value? Like swimming for me wasn't about swimming, it was about belonging. And I that desire to belong and fully participate was what gave me the courage to try. And it was not one try, or I felt like Edison, right? The 10,000 failures. So, but it drives you, that vision of possibility, and that whatever that thing is, the belonging, the freedom, the fulfillment, like it drives you and allows any obstacles to feel like pebbles. You're like, that's not a big deal. I can get over that. But the confidence comes from the action. So I guess that if I were to create a formula, it would be desire, then vision and possibility, then courage, then action, then confidence. So yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. I believe there's an aspect that sort of slides in there somewhere in my life, and I love the formula. I think it's perfect. I think a lot of times, and I've known a lot of people this way, and I have family members that are this way, and the between the possibility, or the dream, I guess we could say, and the action, there's this Grand Canyon like chasm that many just can't get over. And like you said, it's a pebble, but in here sometimes it's the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And then when we take action, we're like, oh, that wasn't so bad, like that was pretty easy.
Yeah.
But I think the aspect that slides in there somewhere for me is, once I've conceived of, and I've taken the action, and I've garnered, some confidence, a faith comes with that that,
Mhm.
wow, this is possible. And maybe the next thing that seems insurmountable is possible. And for me, that's kind of a faith thing that grows over time. And in terms of doing things that I was uncomfortable doing, I don't think that ever ends. At some point you think like, oh man, when's this going to end? When's that really difficult thing that I do going to end it? And I'll be good. And I'll just go from there and not have to do anything more difficult. But I don't think it ends, because
It
there's
doesn't.
stuff I'm scared to do right now that I know I'm going to do. It's just a matter of time, public speaking, all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So it goes back to my origin story, which really set the tone for not my story, my parents' story. And those 4 words, thy will be done.
Mm.
My faith is, so I have a greater faith in God than I do in myself. Okay. And when I look at those 4 words, thy will be done, God's will is, if we say yes to it, guaranteed going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to not be logical or rational. It will feel like almost unattainable, like a pipe dream, especially to others, right? And I just, I do these videos, and for me, my faith is, so when we look at the stories in the Bible, and hopefully it's okay to go there on this podcast,
Sure.
but if you look at all the greats in the Bible, so let's just start with Moses, right? Moses didn't believe in himself, but he believed in God, right? So sometimes when we can't believe in ourselves, we have to look to something greater. And actually, I wouldn't say sometimes, I would say all the time, look to something greater, because you want to make sure you're aligned also. And so for me, the reason I do this, I could live a very happy life. We have a catering company here in Hawaii. We have a beautiful home on an acre. Like, I'm comfortable. I'm married. We're empty nesters now as of last year. Like, life is good and it's comfortable. So I don't have to do this. Just like you, Daryl, you don't have to do this. We've done our time, and we've created a life that's beautiful for us. But there's something driving us, and it's bigger than us. And it's having faith in that and saying yes to God's will in that. And we're doing it even though it's hard. Like you just said, you're like, there are things I don't want to do that I'm probably going to have to do. Like, who wants to open up themselves, their heart, get on stage, expose it to everybody and say, judge me, right? Like, it's hard to give of yourself in this to the world. But we do it not for ourselves, not for fame, not for the wealth. We do it because we're feeling called to make this specific impact that we know we bring, our unique story to and our flavor to it. So I would just encourage anybody who's watching or listening to this right now, if you're feeling like, oh, like I see it, I want it, the desire's there, or perhaps you heard the calling or the whisper. I love Oprah's saying, life will whisper to you, and if you don't listen, it'll scream. I've gotten my scream many times. And and I've tried to run and hide from what I'm supposed to do. And it keeps coming to me and it keeps haunting me. And so I believe that whatever you're seeking is also seeking you.
Mm.
So if you're going after a dream, you're going after a purpose, that purpose is also coming after you. And so these are where we get to make our choices, right? We get to exercise our personal power of Do I say yes and go through it when I know it's going to be hard, when I know it's going to be uncomfortable, when I know there's going to be naysayers, more naysayers than cheerleaders? Or do I stay comfortable? And if you're comfortable, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with comfort, but there's probably more for you.
I believe there's over time with any form of comfort, there comes a time, at least how I've experienced it in my life, where the comfort becomes uncomfortable because you're like, there's
Yes.
something else, there's more, and I have to get up. I like the little whisper turns into a scream. I used to look at that. I talk about it in one of my books. Somebody's kind of knocking on your hood, like, hey, dude, you don't listen, you don't look. And then they're kind of banging on your hood, like, hey, man, pay attention. I don't pay attention. And I've had this happen to me 1,000 times probably.
Mhm.
But then they get those big green Hulk hands on and they start banging on the hood, and just like, oh, I can't not listen now because the comfort became uncomfortable. Because I think we're designed to continue to move, and we're designed to continue to strive for more. And it's not more outside of us generally, it's more inside of us. And another thing a beautiful little thing that I found on some of your information, your site, was you said, I'm done being selfish, keeping this gift to myself.
Mhm.
And I think that's exactly what we're talking about. Comfortable, uncomfortable, whatever it is, I cannot. And another guest of mine a few weeks ago said this as well. She said, I've been gifted with a story, and it's my responsibility to tell it and to try to help. I know you agree with that because that is your mantra, I believe, and I give you so much credit for putting it out there and putting your message out there and showing what courage and perseverance and all of those things can do. So I want to thank you for that. In terms of just getting up every day and doing it. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Thank you. Yeah, there's nature shows us all over that if you're not growing, you're dying. So I'd rather grow. We don't know how many breaths we have left in our life. And so it really is about seizing the moment and doing what we can with what we have in the now.
Yeah. There isn't really anything else, and I can get caught up in and this is an interesting sort of thing because my wife was in Austin this last weekend, and we had traveled to Austin together, and then I came back. I did a weekend sort of retreat thing called Deep Waters, and it was deep, and it was deep waters for sure. But it was a wonderful experience for me, and a lot of things from early on in my life started to make more sense and all that sort of thing. But the point of my story is that my wife stayed, and because we have a son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter in Austin. Granddaughter's 17 months now.
Hmm.
And she's beautiful. But anyway, just a beautiful thing. But my wife came home, and she was a little sort of out of it a little bit. And my wife's name is Christina, and she came home and she's like, I spent the whole weekend in the now with Lively, our grandchild, and she was just in those moments, and the baby is in the moments, and when the baby's eating, it's eating, and when it's talking talking. It's just, and my wife is feeding her, and I'm there for breakfast and dinner on video calls, and and it's just such an in the moment beautiful experience. And I believe one of the big, I don't want to say tricks in life, but one of the big things that we can do to go inside is to explore how to be in more moments.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to projecting the future, regretting the past, oh, I should have, or oh, I should, or all those sorts of things. Do you find that to be sometimes challenging, Pauline?
I think with the state of our world, we have to work more at being present. But being present is extremely important and a high priority for me. To the point where, like, when I'm traveling away from my husband, he gets upset because he's like, "You never call me like to say goodnight or whatever." And I'm like, "Sorry, like where I am is where I am. Like
Mm,
really, it has nothing to do. Like it's not like I forget or I don't care. It's just where I am is where I am." And I remember getting my scuba diving certification, and it required me to be completely present with every breath.
mm,
It was the first time, because our minds are working like 100 miles per hour, and especially me, I've trained myself to think, okay, my husband's going to be leaving, so I'm going to need him to prepare my food. I'm going to need this and that, and it's like I'm obviously thinking more and more of like what needs to happen into the future, right? But um when I had to do the scuba diving, the only way I could get through it was slowing my mind down so much to be like, okay, I'm taking a breath in, I'm releasing the breath. Water is going to come into my mask, because you have to do all the testing for the scuba diving certification. And so I had to do all that. But the first time I did it, I went with my normal operating system, and I had my first and only panic attack so far in life.
mm.
And then they were like, "Oh, well, most people don't get it on the first try. We can do it another time." And I'm like, "No, we're doing it now." And I had to slow my mind down so much. It is being in the present, I think, especially in our industry, where we're wanting to help people, not just with our past stories, but what we observe. We are able to help people with our past stories because we observe it. We're able to go back and observe it. And we need to continue that kind of approach to life in order to continue helping people, because we are not made up of just our past stories. Like, this is what I learned in my past, and you went through AA and you got a mentor, and like, okay, your story is continuing. And if we don't stop to be present, we don't observe the magic in the moment. And that's the beauty of being present. Um, it's all fleeting anyway, right? Like, I just turned 50. Like, what? I'm like, I still feel like I'm 15, but no, it's 50. My father just passed away,
Mm.
he's 75. And if I look at it from that perspective, I'm like, okay, well, I may have a good 25 years left. How do I want that to work that? And it's easy to get caught up in the future, like, oh, this is what I want to create, or the what if I did this type of thing. And I'm not saying don't do that. Like, we have to have some forethought in our life, but I believe that a lot of us miss so much by allowing our mind to be preoccupied either by the past or by the future or by TikTok, in the present. Like, you're choosing to remove yourself from the world when we go into our phone. And I remember someone saying to me, fear only lives in the past or the future. It rarely lives in the now. So when you're looking at going after your dreams, or you're looking at, anything that you desire, don't allow your thinking to pull you into the past or pull you into the future, because then you'll stay stuck in the now. But if you just focus, okay, this is what I'm going to do right now. It's, I mean, Eckhart Tolle made a whole empire on presence. So I would say I would revert to him, if you want more information on presence, but I do know the power of it. And it does have to be practiced.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. My mind, and I'm not sure about most people's minds because I'm not in them, but mine can be, it can run away. It can get real busy. It can get, engulfed in whatever. And so I have had to, and over the last few decades, I've gotten better at things like breath work and meditation, and I am amazed that when I'm outside breathing, when we go outside, there's all sorts of things to see and feel, and the wind, and listen to the sounds and all of those things. 99% of the time, I'm missing all of those things. I'm missing those actual moments. And when I take the time to meditate and to slow my breathing down and be in the moment, and I feel the wind or a slight breeze or whatever it is on my skin, and I'm amazed every single time at what a beautiful feeling. It's like somebody pulling a silk sheet over my skin. It's
Mhm.
it's amazing. And so I believe that sets me up for the rest of what could be a very busy, chaotic, crazy day, but it allows some reverberation of some quiet to sort of layer in into that day. And that's been crucial for me, just because of where I came from and sort of how I'm built overall. I could easily, and I've done it, go, 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 just go, 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 burn myself out, no rest, all that sort of thing. No pain, no gain, just go. And for me, that's not the experience of life that that resonates anymore. And I don't mind being busy. I don't mind doing stuff, but I like doing it with a quieter framework.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think I live in Hawaii, and we live on the east side. So the sun rises, and I love just going out there and just closing my eyes and being there and being in the moment. And here's the thing, when we're talking, we can't hear the messages God's trying to give us. Right. So it's like we're busy. We're like, okay, and then oftentimes when we go into meditation or praying, we allow ourselves to be like we say, okay, this is what I want, and like, can I have this? And, I really would like that. And then we don't stop talking. And then we can't hear what really the messages that we're supposed to be receiving in the moment. Um, and so, yeah, I think setting the tone for your day is really important. Um, and this idea of time, people are like, but there's not enough time. I got to get all these things done. And gosh, I wish I had more time. Or I wish there was more than 24 hours in the day. That really is playing victim to time. But we're the creators of what we do with our time, right? So even the way we shift our mind about how we look at our time can do anything. And I remember someone I interviewed on my podcast, they called it's a theory. I can't remember the scientific name or the given name for it, but it's the 80-20 rule, basically, right? If you really look at what are the things that will move the needle in for you to get toward your dream or build your business or um, uh, invest in your relationship. It's really only a few things, but that 20% of what you do takes care of 80% of whatever you're trying to build, right? So I think that's important to remember, that busy does not equal productive. And I'm a big proponent of like, get yourself a virtual assistant, build a good team. And there's ways of doing that. I've interviewed people on my podcast who they wrote a book about how to build a good team, and they're giving it away for free and all the things, so there are resources out there if you're trying, like this is a new concept for you, to be able to look at in terms of like, okay, well, now rather than being at the effect of time or being at the effect of my life, because I think that's what you're speaking to, Daryl, is like, I've been really good at reacting, right? Like, okay, this happened to me, and then I reacted this way, and then this happened to me, then I did that, and then this happened to me, and then, so we're good at reacting. But when we're at the reacting mode, we're actually not creating anything. We're just responding to whatever is the circumstances, which goes back to what we started talking about in the beginning, that I believe we're not victims of our circumstance. We're not at the effect of what life has to throw at us. Life has to throw some gnarly things. Like there's some hard things that life's going to throw at us. Like the thing is, like people always say, oh, you've overcome so much. I'm like, I've overcome nothing. I still have no arms and legs. My story is not one of like, oh, back then I did this. My story is like, no, I still have to choose to be in the now. I still have to choose to exercise my personal power. I still have to choose to be bigger than my circumstances. And I think, really that's at the crux of having that, what we, just bringing it full circle, like that confidence that you think I have, or what someone said, like you come in, like you own the room, and it's just choice. Really, the key to freedom is choice.
Absolutely. It really is. And you touched on, at least for me, what it reminded me of is continually being teachable and continually being humble enough to learn. I said this to some guys last night. I said, no matter where we are in life or where we've been or what has happened or what we've learned or what we've experienced or whatever, and I still believe 100% that I have barely scratched the surface of whatever my potential as a human being on this planet is. I feel like I'm in spiritual and emotional kindergarten, and that's a good place to be, because what is it? Epictetus said, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And there's so much out there, and there's so much. You'd mentioned Eckhart Tolle and some of the old philosophers, and my wife and I were actually talking about that this morning, that when I first started trying to change my existence and life and do things in a different way, there were these giants of like Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy or Anthony Robbins or whatever. There were just these people that seemed larger than life, but they were just like you and me, learning as they go along, changing as life comes to them, and experiencing things. And I think that's a really cool way to perceive the world and what there is to offer, as far as just continuing to learn, continuing to grow, continuing to be open to change, and to be open to facing the fears and having the courage. And because then life just sort of lays out in front of you, and you're not, I have found, and I know I'm going on a little bit, but I feel like I've been led as opposed to just reacting to everything that happens. I feel like I'm being led in a way that's taking me toward what I want to do, which is help other people.
Yeah. 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 And that reiterates the point of having that vision, and is it aligned with God's will? Because, like, then the question is, well, who are you being led by? Or what are you being led by?
The answer to that question is, and I don't know if I talked about this on your podcast or not, but I was raised Lutheran, and
Mm.
I don't identify with any sort of religion at this point in my life. I call God because I don't have a better name for
Mhm.
he, him, her, whatever God might be. But what I really try to do, and this is where I'm at and have been for quite some time, is the less I define God, the larger and more expansive and more beautiful God gets. And
Mm.
so I believe it is God, but God includes the universe, God includes energy, God includes beauty, God includes everything.
Yeah.
So that's what's leading me through this life.
Yeah. It's, everything that we see around us. It's like when you see a beautiful picture, oil painting. The oil painting is a reflection of the creator. So everything that we see around us, when we're in nature, when you're doing your meditation and you feel the wind on your skin, feeling like a silk sheet being pulled over you, or you hear the birds singing, or you hear the fluttering of the leaves in the wind in the trees, like all of that. It's like, okay, well, this is a reflection of the creator, and what created this beauty and magnificence around me also created me. So I must also be beautiful and magnificent, and maybe we don't feel like a silk sheet on someone's skin, but it's understanding that there is something bigger than us. Um, when we're going towards something, there's a lot of ways to look at this. There's like the push and pull, right? Something is pulling me. You said that. I feel like something's pulling me. You're not pushing it. You're not like, okay, here's my agenda, and here's how many sales I need to make a month, and here's, like, it's not just statistics. You've sold very successfully for other companies. You've done that. You know what that feels like. And this obviously sounds like this feels different for you going on this journey. It's a pull. You can also say, are you running towards something, or are you running away from something?
Mm.
So is what's pulling you having you run toward it? Like, I remember feeling this need to, when I graduated high school, to go away to college. Not because I was running away from my home, not because everything was great, not because all my needs were taken care of. It was easy at home. But I just felt this nudge, like, you need to go in order to grow. You need to see what you can do independently, away from the people that have sheltered you this whole time. So as a running toward, I wasn't running from, right? And then, like, is it whatever we're motivated by, you can also look at that, right? Are you motivated? A lot of people, including myself, and this was a big paradigm shift for me, was like, oh no, I want freedom. This is why I'm doing it. I want freedom. But is it because you don't have the freedom? So even though it's positioned as something positive, it's actually coming from a place of fear or lack. So is your motivation positive? Like, no, I want freedom because I just want to see what I can create. Like, let's just play. When you're kids, you're just playing. Well, I don't know. Let's just create a world and go on adventures, and like, you're just creating. But a lot of us are trying to go build a business or have a relationship, or go after their dream because out of fear, even though they think it's for something positive. Like, oh, I just want to have a relationship because I want to love somebody. I just have so much love to give. Or is it, no, I want a relationship because I'm scared to be alone.
Right.
And I need to be loved because I didn't have that before. So really looking at it, and there's all, but it really does make a difference. Really understanding yourself and creating that awareness about yourself of, are you being pulled? Are you pushing? Are you moving toward? Or are you running away from? Are you coming from abundance? Or are you coming from scarcity? So it's a good awareness piece for a lot of people who are trying to build something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's crucial, and so much of my life has been it's almost like the next right thing, the next step, whatever that is. And I'm open to whatever the next step is. And there was a time in my life many, many moons ago where I would say, oh man, what's going to happen next? Like that whole like, oh, dread. And for a long time now, it's been, wow, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And that shift in mindset or perception, I think is absolutely crucial. And I think that goes back to experience, but it also goes back to faith. It also goes back to, have I developed enough faith to understand that the next thing that happens is probably going to be pretty freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how I perceive it, or no matter what it is, it can still be cool. Even if it doesn't feel good, it can still be cool. And even if it doesn't feel good, it's probably the next right step in my life. And that's, I think, where my faith comes in. We're running up on the clock here, Pauline. We've been talking for a while, but I'd love to talk a little bit about your work and how to find you and what you're doing out there to help others and give them such a wonderful, courageous example.
Thank you. So currently, at the moment, I have a mastermind called Step Into the Spotlight, and it is for coaches, speakers, and authors who are wanting to make a greater impact and income. And how you do that is you have to show up. So I give you resources. I give you different prompts in order for you to start showing up. And then the mastermind really is there to support you, if this is what you're looking to build, to when you hit those edges of discomfort, or you're stuck on perfectionism, or you're stuck on analyzing, like analysis paralysis, and you're looking at what everybody else is doing and feeling I'm not as good as them, or you're running into that imposter syndrome. So when you are in this industry of basically being a messenger in the world, there's the reality of it is your message needs to get out there, and the best person to deliver that message is you. And it can be scary. So I'm here to support you if that's something you're looking at. I do give a 1 month free access pass to complimentary experience what it is, so that way you can really see if this is for you or not for you. So I'm sure you'll include that in the show notes. If people want to reach out to me and see if they're interested, they can do that.
Thank you. And your website will be in the show notes, but it's onelegupproductions.com.
Yes, onelegupproductions.com. And I forgot, I do have a book. It's available on Amazon. It's called Broken Body, Whole Spirit.
Very cool. Yeah, that's wonderful. Your message is beautiful, and it really is. It's so genuine, and I know that used to be the word for authentic, right? Genuine or be real.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
So many words and phrases that have changed over the years, but they still mean the same thing that we called something different years and years ago. But but your genuine nature and your authenticity is beautiful to experience, and I can just feel it, Pauline. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been wonderful having you on and experiencing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daryl. And thank you to anybody who's listening. Thank you for your time and investing in yourself.
Thanks, Pauline.
If you've enjoyed When I Stop Fighting the podcast, please check out my books and my journals on my website, daryldittmer.com. Enjoy a 15% discount by using the code PODCAST, DARYLDITTMER.com. Thanks again.